Now, as we keep telling you, there are 7 swing states this time. There are now Nevada, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, apart from Georgia and Pennsylvania, which is where the 2 candidates were last seen. Let's now quickly jump on the campaign trail. The Democratic presidential nominee attended a CNN town hall in Pennsylvania. The American media network claimed to arrange some of the undecided voters in their audience, who then asked questions to Harris. There were questions on her policies towards Palestinians, border, immigration, and how her governance will be different than that of Joe Biden's. We will analyze that with a special guest within a few minutes. Harris is now heading towards Georgia, where a star-studded rally awaits her. She will be joined by rock legend Bruce Springsteen, entertainer Tyler Perry, and former President Barack Obama. Now, celebrity endorsers have typically helped campaigns raise money, but money is not what she's looking for. With less than 2 weeks to go, 12 days to be specific, Harris needs more people to turn out to vote, a strategy experts say could help the Democrats win. Trump seems to be hanging out more with the Democrats than the Republicans. If yesterday it was Tulsi Gabbard, today it was Robert Kennedy Jr. Once running against Trump, today standing by him.
The Democratic Party is now the party of the neocons. It's the party of surveillance, of censorship, of war. And it's the party that is a cheerleader for big ag, for big pharma.
She's not a smart person. She's a low IQ individual. She is. She's a low IQ person. Millions of Americans are suffering because of inflation. They're losing their jobs. They can't afford housing, groceries, or a car. And yet Kamala is importing millions of illegals across our borders and giving them taxpayer benefits at your expense.
Let's talk numbers now. Kamala Harris's campaign started with a big jump in polls after President Joe Biden dropped out of the race. But after enjoying a long honeymoon period, her lead has narrowed in national polls and in fact evaporated in the battleground states. And as per a new Wall Street Journal poll, Donald Trump has opened a narrow lead over his Democratic rival. The national survey showed that Trump is leading Harris 47 to 45. A poll by the same publication in August had put Harris ahead by 2 points. Now, the lead in both polls are within the margin of errors of 2.5 percentage points. Hence, it's very difficult to call the race at this point. Now, the recent survey showed that views towards Harris have turned more negative since August, and voters now have unfavorable views towards her by 8 percentage points. Voters also gave Harris her worst job rating as vice president, with 42% approving and 54% disapproving of her performance. On the other hand, voters recalled Trump's time as president more positively, with 52% approving and 48% disapproving of his performance in office. Trump has also extended his lead as the best candidate on handling the economy and illegal immigration. He also led on the candidate with right experience for the job. Meanwhile, another poll has found that more than a quarter of Americans believe that a civil war could break out after this year's presidential election. A YouGov poll survey found that 27% of American adults fear eruption of violence after the polls. And to get us some perspective, now we are joined by Mr. Jonah Blank from Washington, D.C. He's a former foreign policy advisor to President Joe Biden, who advised Biden for 9 long years on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Mr. Blank, good to see you again on our show.
Thank you for having me.
You know, I watched the town hall in Pennsylvania, and please correct me if I'm wrong. It seemed like the audience was different than what Harris usually sees. As CNN's presenter had claimed, they are undecided voters, and it seemed like they wanted to hear more about what Harris will do rather than what Donald Trump won't do. Do you think the vice president delivered on that front?
I think she did. I think that there really is no way that one can plausibly say Vice President Harris has not given a clear position on what she's going to do, particularly compared with the alternative. Anyone who wants more information can get it. It's right out there. She's put it all in a 72-page booklet. It's on her website. It's available from me and everybody else who appears in public venues. So I really don't think that there is a good faith argument that she's holding something back.
Speaking of the booklet, in fact, we heard Kamala Harris again and again reiterate that you should hop onto our website. But Mr. Blank, it's just 12 days to go for elections. Do you really think people are skipping through the booklets and going on websites? They're actually looking for their candidate online or on TV. Don't you think so?
Right. And yes, very much so. And she provides these answers. She's done all of these interviews, CNN, 60 Minutes, down all of the lists. And she presents detailed plans. People may like it, people may not like it. It's perfectly legitimate to say, I understand what you're doing and I'm going to vote against you. But it's really not, in my view, legitimate for people to say, I want to learn more about you, but I'm unwilling to listen.
All right, Mr. Blank, since you say that, how do you explain her slipping in the opinion polls?
Well, first off, all of the polls are within the margin of error. I think anyone claiming to know how this will turn out is either lying or guessing. This is going to be a coin flip election right up until the last minute. It really doesn't matter which candidate is up 2 points today, down 2 points tomorrow. The polls were off by 3, 4, 5% in 2016 and 2020. And I think we have to assume that they will be again. We don't know which direction they'll be off, but I think it's a fair bet they're not going to accurately reflect the final tab. So what we have to really figure is this is going to be essentially a tied election right up until the end.
Mr. Blank, you're absolutely right in pointing out that this is well in the margin of error. It's 47 to 45 as the numbers we have right now. But then you also have to agree that there is this silent voters who usually back Donald Trump. That was the case in 2016, and that was in fact the case in 2020 as well. Then what do you say to that?
Yes, I think that point is a very accurate one, and it really should scare Democrats because Donald Trump outperformed his polls both at the national level and at the state level in 2016 and 2020. Will he do so again? We don't know. We won't know until after Election Day, but you're absolutely right. He's got a 2-for-2 record of outperforming his polls.
All right, before I let you go, Mr. Blank, for someone who's watching these elections outside of America, in the last 24 hours, we heard Kamala Harris call her rival a fascist. We heard Donald Trump call his rival a low IQ person. Is this a character of US elections, or would you say it's unique to this specific race of 2024?
Well, it's unique to the Donald Trump era because Donald Trump is a fascist. His own former chief of staff, retired 4-star Marine John Kelly, said so. His own chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, 4-star, then serving Army General, General Milley said so. So many other people have said so. So this is not sort of a word just tossed around by Kamala Harris. This is a title that Donald Trump has earned. As for Donald Trump's, frankly, racist and sexist condemnations of Kamala Harris, calling her low IQ, where is he getting this? Does anyone think that someone who has served as the Attorney General of California, Senator of California, Vice President of the United States, you may like Kamala Harris, you may dislike her, but what is the basis, apart from racism and sexism, for saying she's not smart?
As much as I agree with you, then one wonders how is not just half of Americans, but most of the Americans, not most, a little more than half of the Americans are actually vying for Donald Trump's second presidency. All right, we'll have to leave it with that. Thank you so much for joining us here on this broadcast, Mr. Blank, and getting us your insights as always.
Thank you for having me.
Let's now shift focus to another big story. This one's coming from Canada. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has landed in fresh trouble with his own party members, asking him to step down as Prime Minister. And this comes after the Liberals lost 2 special parliamentary polls in regions which has traditionally been their strongholds. Several Liberal lawmakers are now urging the leaders to not run for a fourth term, issuing him a deadline of October 28th to make his decision. Now, reports said that some Liberal MPs have said that Trudeau must leave by October 28th or face unspecified consequences. The growing dissent within the party intensified at a caucus meeting in capital of Ottawa. According to reports, Trudeau was presented a letter that called for his resignation as the Prime Minister. The letter was signed by at least 24 of the 153 Liberal parliamentary members, and reports suggest that around 20 members lambasted Trudeau's leadership after the letter was read out aloud in the secretly held meeting. Further, leader of Conservative Party and Trudeau's political rival, Pierre Poilievre, demanded fresh elections if the Prime Minister does not heed to the advice of his fellow party members. Now, currently, Trudeau's Liberal Party has 153 seats from the total of 338 seats. Poilievre's Conservative Party of Canada has 119 seats, and on the other hand, the Bloc Québécois and the National Democratic Party, or the NDP, have 33 and 25 seats, respectively. Political observers in Canada believe that calls for Trudeau's sacking by fellow party members will further dent his leadership. They also added that higher inflation, rising housing costs and a longer tenure have played a vital role in the growing dissent towards the Canadian Prime Minister. However, dumping Trudeau might do more harm as the Liberals do not have a successor in place. Meanwhile, the Canadian Prime Minister said that the Liberal Party is strong during an interaction with the media. In the months after the election mandate in France brought in a right-leaning minority government, after a political tussle, citizens feel that the democratic system is broken. According to a poll released on Wednesday, more than half the people feel that the democratic institution is in decline. 51% say only a strong power could guarantee law and order. To another question on democracy, 23% said that democracy is not the best political system currently to offer. Let's take a look at the timeline of France's political landscape that underwent a sweeping change this year. After losing in the European Parliament polls in June, France's President Emmanuel Macron announced early elections in the country. Voting was held on June 30th and July 7th. Macron's centrist bloc lost the election and the left-wing alliance emerged on top, followed by the far-right bloc in second place. In July itself, the political drama began. After weeks of back and forth, Macron appointed right-wing leader Michel Barnier as the Prime Minister. Barely 2 months after assuming office, Barnier faced a no-confidence motion and survives it. With the budget announcement coming at the end of this month, it remains to be seen if another vote of no confidence will take place. Let's now take you to Bangladesh. Amid growing demands for Bangladeshi President Mohammad Shahabuddin to step down, the interim government of the country has said that it has not taken any decision on his removal. Now, this comes after protesters stormed the presidential palace over Shahabuddin's recent comment on the ousted former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. In an interview last week, Shahabuddin said he did not have any documentary evidence of Hasina resigning as Prime Minister before she fled the country. Now, earlier, in an address on August 5th, Shahabuddin had said that Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has tendered her resignation letter to the President and he has received it. Shahabuddin is therefore being accused of falsehood and violation of oath of office. But Bangladesh's interim government is considering this as a political rather than a constitutional matter. The Bangladesh Nationalist Party's top brass held talks with Chief Advisor Mohammad Yunus over the issue, and after the crucial meeting, a BNP leader said that the party does not want his exit as it would create a constitutional crisis in the country. Law advisor Asif Nazrul said that they must keep an eye so that no constitutional or political crisis arises in the country. Bangladesh is already in a political turmoil after the fall of the Awami League regime. Several leaders have held multiple meetings with Yunus, urging him to hold a general election promptly, although the government has yet to announce a date. Reports say that the BNP is already crafting its election strategy. According to reports, the party is rallying allies from its simultaneous anti-Awami League movement, and it may form an alliance with its movement partners for the next election. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa's comments to Russian President Vladimir Putin at the BRICS summit at Kazan have upset his coalition partners. Meeting Putin on the sidelines of the summit on Tuesday, this is what Ramaphosa told him in Kazan.
We continue to see Russia as a valued ally, as a valued friend who supported us right from the beginning, from the days of our struggle against apartheid right through to now. So we're really delighted to be here and to know that we are going to have important discussions here in Kazan within the BRICS family.
The Democratic Alliance has taken exception to Ramaphosa calling Russia as a valuable ally and friend. Leader of the alliance said in a statement that his party distances itself from Ramaphosa's comments. He said that Putin is your ally, Mr. President, not South Africa's. The opposition leader further urged the government of national unity to debate matters thoroughly before announcing South Africa's position publicly, adding that at a time when South Africa was experiencing renewed optimism owing to the GNU, the government could not make statements that could jeopardize international relations and trade opportunities. Russia is currently hosting BRICS summit between October 22nd and 24th, where leaders of Brazil, China, Egypt, Ethiopia, India, Iran, Russia, South Africa and the United Arab Emirates are meeting for the first time since new members were invited to join BRICS during the last summit. Now, correspondent Khalid Omu has a report on this.
Ramaphosa's previous ANC-led government has been criticized for its close ties with Russia and pro-Palestine stance, and this has led to perceived tensions with the West. Prior to the formation of the GNU, which is the Government of National Unity, the DA and the ANC had fundamental differences on several matters related to South Africa's foreign policy, and it seems like the differences are still rife and very much in existence even after the formation of GNU. This is Khalid Omu from Johannesburg, South Africa for WION World is One.
Let's now go across to Georgia, a story we have been closely tracking on this show. A country all set for a pivotal election on 26th of October, days after thousands of Georgians took part in a pro-European Union march. The ruling party saw thousands come out in their support in the final campaign rally. Just on Wednesday, the Georgian Dream Party addressed thousands at the Freedom Square in the country's capital of Tbilisi. The ruling party has been in power since 2012 and maintained that only they can guarantee peace and stability in the country.
We must remind ourselves once again that the October 26th election is a decisive referendum. On the two sides of the scale lie war and peace, immoral propaganda and traditional values, hatred and love, a dark past and Georgia's bright future.
Georgia grapples with an identity crisis seeped deep in its political and geographical history. A part of the former Soviet Union till its collapse in 1991, generations of Georgians have a close overlap of culture and tradition with Russia. Additionally, Orthodox Christianity is the dominant religion in the country. After independence, Georgia began a gradual but material shift towards a more European identity, and the move was further cemented by the country officially seeking membership of the European Union. However, the accession process came to a halt after the ruling party passed a foreign agent bill that many criticize of being pro-Russia. Now, with elections just 2 days away, Georgians are divided over the country's cumulative identity and which party can do it justice.
Here we stand for our homeland and for our faith, the faith that has preserved us through time. This is why we stand here, for our future, for our children, for our families, and for our traditions. Because a woman is a woman and a man is a man.
I am a proud Orthodox Christian. I cherish patriotism and mutual respect, and I hold a deep appreciation for Georgian traditions and the ideals of the Georgian dream. I honor our history, which serves as a guiding light as we strive for ever greater victories in the future.
Let's now take a look at what else is making headlines in the world of elections and politics. Bulgaria goes to polls on Sunday for the 7th snap election in the country in less than 4 years. The latest round of polls highlight Bulgaria's political tussle as parties struggle to form a stable coalition. And as per reports, voters have become increasingly apathetic about the election mandate. Bulgaria is the poorest member of the European Union, and for years it has been plagued by revolving door governments, ever since anti-graft protests broke out in 2020. The movement had then toppled a coalition led by the centre-right GERB party. Voting will end at 8 p.m. local time, and final results will be released next week. Days after election took place in Moldova, the country's police has revealed that pro-Russian figures had circulated money in order to bribe voters. Businessman Ilan Shor, who is a fugitive, had allegedly spent $39 million in September and October to bribe voters in the double voting for presidential elections and a referendum on joining the European Union took place last Sunday. Moldovan police chief said that the pro-Russian businessman used a Russian bank to funnel $15 million in September and $24 million in October to pay off voters. Moldovan authorities have also claimed that Russian groups allegedly meddled in the election campaign that was aimed to defeat the pro-European incumbent president Maia Sandu and also influence the referendum. Venezuela's opposition may have fled or gone into hiding after incumbent President Nicolas Maduro got re-elected, but the European Parliament decided to honor the leaders. Just on Thursday, the European Parliament handed its annual Sakharov Prize for freedom of thought to Venezuelan opposition leaders Maria Corina Machado and Edmundo Gonzalez. EU lawmakers chose Machado and Gonzalez for quote-unquote representing the people of Venezuela fighting to restore freedom and democracy. Ever since the opposition lost the July 28 elections, Edmundo Gonzalez fled to Spain and Machado went into hiding, occasionally resurfacing but only online.
Que de la mano de Dios encontramos la persona.
And with those updates, I'm wrapping up this edition of Race to Power. Thanks for watching with me and Anya Datta. Goodbye.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
As Diljit Dosanjh performs in India this weekend, we tell you all about the craze of the global icon. Take a deep dive into the Venom franchise as the final film hits screens. And remember the late One Direction star, Liam Payne, as the world mourns his untimely death. All this and much more with me, Isha Hanspal, at these times only on WION World is One.
WION brings you a special business talk show where we bring forth the stories of business leaders.
From breakthrough technologies to visionary leadership, we will unlock the trends, the tactics, and dive into the minds of the industry's most influential leaders.
WION brings you this special series to uncover what drives them in a candid talk show, WION